what specifically is Trey's law?
Yes, so Trey's law ends the misuse of NDAs against child sexual abuse and trafficking victims in civil settlement agreements specifically. So it's already illegal to put someone under an NDA to cover up a crime. That doesn't hold, but victims might not know that and be scared to talk about the criminal elements of their case. In a situation like my brother's, he filed a civil lawsuit and did not want to go to trial with it, did not want to put me, I was pregnant with one of my children when he was going through his civil litigation, didn't want to put his pregnant sister through depositions and things. So he had reasons to just close it out, get this behind him, to your point, move on, and have some funds for therapy, lost income, all the things that survivors need to survive. And money doesn't fix it, but it certainly can help. But I haven't met one survivor, and I am now a certified crime victim advocate, who says, I'm going into this for the cash. They are going into it for accountability, justice, healing, and then the actual need for funds to get the help that will be a huge part of their healing, ideally. In my brother's case, he was not healed this side of heaven. But yes, that's how it plays out. And even a plaintiff's lawyer, standard practice in personal injury law, sign the settlement agreement, put it behind you. We can avoid the stress of a trial, but you have to do it in exchange for your silence. I think in any other context, we'd call that a bribe. Your voice in exchange for restitution. And you're right, there are, with intellectual property, or there's a need for confidentiality in the corporate sector for a variety of reasons. Not all NDAs are bad, but Trey's law ends the misuse of NDAs against child sexual abuse and trafficking cases, against the victims of those cases. And so that's what this does. And it's swept through now 7 states. So started in Texas and Missouri, and we've now passed Georgia, Alabama. We failed in Oklahoma. That was a wild journey and interesting to see the opposition there. But we have also been filed in US Congress, both in the Senate and the House. And if this passes federally, then we no longer have to go state by state to just set a baseline standard of we don't put kids under NDAs. Kids can't consent to contracts anyways. So why have we been doing this? And oftentimes it's the guardian or the parent who signs this on behalf of their child because they aren't a lawyer and maybe don't understand what they're signing completely, that their child's lost their innocence and they're signing away their voice on top of that. It might not be fully comprehended by the parent or guardian for years later when the child wants to write a book or talk about their story or speak on a podcast like this, and they are legally prohibited from doing so. So we're
and by the way, some of these NDAs, it's not, you can't even do it generally. It's not that you can't just say the name or where you're from. It's like that whole part of your life is packaged and put on a shelf, and you can't. And I think that's really important to point out. You mentioned what's happening in the federal level. There's a lot of bipartisan support, which is, I could tell you, as someone that covers a lot of politics, we don't have a lot of bipartisan support for a lot of things. So it makes it unique already. And there is some hope. Is there hope, Elizabeth, that you could see this potentially move in the Senate and the House before the midterm elections? Have you been given any sort of guidance on what a timeline could look for the House or the Senate to consider this?
Yeah, so we should be up on the Senate floor very soon now that we've passed out of Judiciary Committee, unanimously gained 10 co-sponsors. I was with friends last night who said they watched it, and it was like The Voice when all the judges turn their chairs around together and want the same contestant. That's what it felt like. People saying, I want a co-sponsor, I want a co-sponsor, both sides of the aisle. And that this is bipartisan, and this is so common sense, and it's something we can do to protect kids. It's a way to do something in a time where we feel maybe hopeless and powerless over the state of the world, and like, why is Congress not acting to protect children or survivors, having their voices amplified? Trey's law is an opportunity to at least remove the barrier of silence from the situation. So that's what I'm excited about with recent momentum. And I think, yes, to answer your question, by the midterms, this should be moving swiftly along. We've had no opposition to date. And our Senate sponsors and co-sponsors are keeping an eye out on that. We just newly filed in the House, so starting to work the other chamber now, but only positive and supportive feedback so far, because everybody wants to do something like this to help kids.
So with all that said, what happened in Oklahoma? You said it was kind of a wild ride. Like, well, you see that bipartisan support on Capitol Hill, but you don't see it in its states. I'm trying to think about always thinking about multiple perspectives.
Mhm.
And you can speak directly about Oklahoma or not. I know you're probably going to start, you would want the legislation to move forward there, certainly. But when we're considering the other side, if there is another side, is it the insurance companies that are saying, okay, we need to understand that liability is not indefinite. And so therefore we do need NDAs for children. I mean, I'm trying to intellectually understand what would be the resistance to it because it sounds practical. But
Yeah.
how can you describe the opposition?
So now that there's been sine die in Oklahoma, which means session has adjourned, we did hear from the Senate floor leader and President Pro Tem in Oklahoma as to their reasoning. It was very bizarre to me. I did a video on Instagram reacting to the things they had said. But basically, they had an issue with the Cindy Clemishire Act part of the bill. So Trey's law was filed with Cindy Clemishire's Act, and that would eliminate the criminal statute of limitations in Oklahoma. Oklahoma is one of 6 states that has yet to fully eliminate the criminal statute of limitations for child sexual abuse and trafficking claims. And that right now in Oklahoma, it's 45 is the deadline to press charges against a perpetrator, a pedophile. And so we thought this was a low-hanging fruit bill. They can join the rest of the country, and actually federally, the criminal statute of limitations on this issue was removed in 2006. Civilly, it was removed in 2022, not retroactively, but prospectively. And so Oklahoma is just an awkward outlier in this whole movement where Trey's law did not pass. And they said it was because of issues they had with the Cindy Clemishire Act part of the bill. And that is where I think our quote to the media in Oklahoma was baffled. We are baffled by this because the reasoning thrown out did not make sense. But you brought up insurance, and that is who opposes our statute of limitations reform work at a national level. Every state I've been to, the insurance lobby comes at us pretty hard, and they do a lot of work behind the scenes to kill any statute of limitations reform as it pertains to crimes against children. They don't want to have to pay out these settlements, and they want to protect their clients. The clients themselves want to protect their brands and image. And so kids just aren't being centered or prioritized. Victims of child sexual abuse are seen as a problem, a PR issue, not our most precious and valuable assets in society.